Hello. So today we're going to talk about building a multi-site platform to support your brands. My name is Ted Slazinski. I'm a solution architect at EPAM, and you can find me on Drupal.org. My username is Energy. So there's a few takeaways that we're looking to give you guys today. We're looking to do a few things: plan for a sustainable multi-site architecture, facilitate successful collaboration of large teams to one single code base, develop Drupal sites with a shared platform approach in mind, and apply knowledge of tools and processes to support this approach. So the analogy I like to make for the multi-site approach is to kind of compare this to prefabricated home developments. Okay, so we have the ability to choose from a selection of layouts, and this translates to the web approach, where we have this ability to choose from different layouts, different components that could be placed on pages. We have a selection of finishes that may be able to be customized for your home, the same way as we can kind of have a customizable design language with specific fonts, specific colors, logos, things like that. This gives us predictability in the home context through limited labor, pre-priced building materials, and we get this same level of predictability through other things like code quality gates, automated testing, that sort of guarantees some level of stability for code that's being added. And this gives us the ability to design once, to kind of build an architecture, have different variations and reuse this this same architecture for all of the houses that might be in a similar neighborhood and location. In the web context, we have this ability to design once to meet the needs of the organization and just reuse these. So the nice thing about using this in the web is that we get better economies of scale because of the fact that we're not using building materials, and we're not buying new building materials each time we build each site. We're kind of building everything once and reusing it. So a really important part of this is stakeholder participation. You want to have any stakeholders that are involved with this committed to the plan. So they give up customization and complete control over their sites, and in exchange for that, we give them stability, reduced costs through shared components, longer application life, and the benefits of new additional features as everything continues to be maintained in the same location. So with the platform approach, we have this kind of a different mentality for feature development. Everything is kind of developed once in the context of Drupal. All sites share configuration as well as code. So any type of sensitive information that is specific to one specific application would have to be stored in secret keys or managed specifically within the database and excluded from the code base with something like config ignore. Modules can be enabled or disabled. Perhaps you don't need a specific feature on one of your sites. Just module can be completely turned off. And this allows everything that we're building to share the same testing. So we kind of build unit testing and behavioral testing around everything that the platform has, and all of the entire platform will share this, and it can be run during your CI process. So there's a couple tools that we use to make this possible. And some of the specific tools that we use are Acquia BLT. These are convenient for development because it sort of has a significant amount of templates that allow you to get all of this up and running quickly. They have support for a lot of different tools. And some of the most important things, I think, is that this gives all the developers the ability to go through your CI validation process locally. And it allows us to kind of provide some governance over what all of the developers are contributing, because we can, kind of have like a standardized validation for commit messages, so we can make set an expectation for how our messages should be structured. This way we can tie our commits to tools like GitHub or Jira, so that way we can kind of get like linking between the feature that's being worked on and tie it back to our project management tools. We also want to have a Docker environment. Couple examples or recommendations are Doxel, Lando, or DDEV. This just allows us to match our environment's specs, PHP version, database, any type of extra tools like Solar. We can just have everything kind of rolled into a Docker environment, be able to replicate that and share it across all of our developers. You want to have some sort of hosting solution. It's possible to put this together yourself. We recommend Acquia Cloud Site Factory. It's a really good infrastructure for building out multiple sites on a shared code base. Has a lot of tools and a nice dashboard for managing all of them. And then you want some sort of tool for managing your layout, because they will differ between all of your applications. Acquia Site Studio, Drupal 8, Drupal 9 Layout Builder is also a great choice. So continuous integration and deployment is an important component here. We want to use as much automation as we possibly can to kind of make this process more predictable and faster. So a couple examples: Acquia Pipelines, Azure DevOps, Travis CI, GitHub Actions, and Jenkins CI are all good CI tools. And then we can do things like automatically create deployment artifacts based on a branch naming structure, or create artifacts based on all of our tags. So here's kind of like a rough idea of how our code moves up from our developers out to our applications. We have developers contribute to a Git repository, something like GitHub. And then we can have a CI process validating all of the code with static analysis. And once that's approved, we can merge things into a build artifact, and I'll get into some of the detail behind that in the next slide. And all of our brands will share all the same code. So kind of like a basic we We have feature development happening against a development branch. And this will continuously deploy to our development environment. Everything that gets merged up into a release branch will end up on a test environment. Any bug fixes that happen can be contributed directly to that release branch. And then once we pass like a QA process, this can all be merged up into a stable branch, which would be tagged and go out to our production environment. So release scheduling, it's an important part of this. You know, one of the biggest enemies of making a shared code base like this between multiple applications, what can lead to a lot of problems is just having, you know, constant releases and constant code that's making its way up there. So we want all of our code to be validated. So we want to give our QA team significant enough time to be able to review everything. So we want to have a schedule. You know, we recommend something like a weekly schedule. Then we can have a code freeze on a specific day. Testing starts, and during this time, the only type of code that's allowed to be released to this, that can be contributed to this release branch are just bug fixes, and having a full release to production on Thursday allows us enough time to align with Drupal security updates, which are always released on Wednesdays. This type of releasing can be scheduled any way that works well for your organization. But you just want to make sure that you can guarantee that you feel comfortable with the code and that it's stable before everything is released to production. So by having enough time to conduct full QA process, it allows us to do this. So benefits of the platform. The highlights here are reduced cost of ownership for large deployments. Developers can focus on better code and sustainability of the platform. Our focus can be more on improvement rather than constantly rebuilding things. And we can have a significant amount of UI consistency between applications, back end and front end. So this kind of helps with providing a similar feel between all of your different groups or brands or whatever you're serving on your platform, and also allows your training process to be more consistent, because once your content managers are able to understand how to use a single application, they'll be able to understand the rest. So yeah, that's it. I think I got like one more minute here. I think I can take questions over chat or potentially over video. But yeah, if we run out of time, you can also stop by our booth.
Hey, Ted, it looks like you have a few questions over in the Q&A tab.
Okay, so the first question is, how do you roll back a deployment to production in Site Factory, including rolling back database and files? So Site Factory keeps an archive of the full database and files, and there's the ability to kind of automate how often these snapshots are taken, and then in addition, you know, you have the ability to kind of select between what you're serving on this site, whether like a specific branch or tags. So we keep tags on the production environment. So if for any reason you do need to roll back, you can do all of those three things. How do you update config to match upstream changes? You add field and want to distribute it all. So the idea is we just use we use the default folder for storing all of our config between all of these sites, and any type of config changes would be deployed with our code. And this is part of the typical BLT tools. You can, all this configuration that goes out with the code can be imported into the site whenever it's deployed with your code. How do you get the hotfix from the stable branch back down to dev? So we would make our hotfix to the stable branch, and then we would just merge the stable branch down to dev. What are best practices in managing separate configurations? So we want to always avoid having separate configuration. I mean, it's kind of a limitation of having this approach, but sometimes there is a necessary need for having configuration that differs, whether it's like an API integration or something that is just very specific to that application. So for situations like that, I recommend just ignoring them, and within the configuration management tracking, and then tracking them either with like a private file. Site Factory allows you to have a private a secrets file that allows you to track these specific things and keep them out of the code base, or just having them, you know, specifically set in the database and excluded from your configuration management. In a multi-site setup using ACSF, what's the best way to manage? Okay, that's pretty much a repeat. So yeah, and I definitely recommend using, trying to keep everything within the default folder as possible. And then, because like having individual splits for each application is a lot of tracking. It's hard to review. At least this way we can kind of track what's being changed on the platform as a whole. When we have everything shared, and everything that's very application specific just left out of configuration. I don't have any specific configuration for Jenkins. We use Azure DevOps. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. If anybody has any other questions, stop by EPAM's booth.